Have you ever wondered if it's possible to hear something that, well, isn't really there? I'm not talking about a trick of the mind. I mean a targeted message that only you can hear. It sounds like something straight out of a spy thriller, right? But a declassified document shows it's way closer to reality than you might think. So let's dive in and see what this report actually says.
Beam voices into people's heads. Yeah, you heard that right. That's a direct quote. And it's not from some leaked memo or a wild conspiracy theory. It's right there, in an official United States Army report on non-lethal weapons that was released to the public under the Freedom of Information Act. So here's the big question, isn't it? Is this just a far-out concept, pure science fiction stuff? Or is it a declassified fact, a real technology that's been studied, understood, and maybe even developed? Well, let's follow the evidence and find out.
All right, so the source for all this is a report called Bioeffects of Selected Non-Lethal Weapons. Now, it details a bunch of, let's say, maturing technologies, but the one that just jumps off the page is this phenomenon known as microwave hearing.
And what's really wild is how the report describes the experience. The sounds, things like buzzing, hissing, or knocking, they aren't heard through your ears in the normal way. Instead, people perceive them as coming from inside their own head. There is literally no external sound wave. A microphone would pick up nothing.
So the first thing you're probably asking is how on earth is that possible, right? How can you hear a sound that doesn't travel through the air to your eardrums? Well, the science behind it is frankly fascinating, and it all hinges on a principle that completely bypasses our normal way of hearing.
Okay, look at this. This is the key difference. Normal hearing, it all starts with a sound wave vibrating your eardrum. Simple enough. But with microwave hearing, that entire step is just gone. A pulse of radio frequency energy talks directly to your brain tissue, which then creates a signal that your inner ear, the cochlea, picks up as sound. It completely skips the eardrum.
And the scientific name for this magic trick is thermoelastic expansion. Now, it sounds really complicated, I know, but the basic idea is surprisingly straightforward. When a pulse of microwave energy hits your head, it causes a tiny, unbelievably fast heating of the brain tissue. This makes the tissue expand just a little bit, and that expansion creates a minuscule pressure wave inside your head, a wave that your inner ear hears as sound.
Let's break that down. First, a targeted pulse of RF energy is sent. Next, your brain tissue absorbs it, heating up just a tiny fraction of a degree. Then, that heat makes the tissue expand microscopically. And finally, and this is the amazing part, that little expansion creates a sound wave that is born inside your head and travels directly to your inner ear.
So just how tiny is this temperature change? Look at this number, 5 millionths of a degree Celsius. It's an almost unmeasurable amount of energy, so small that the report says it's not even considered hazardous. And yet, that's all it takes to create a sound that a person can clearly hear. It's just incredible.
Okay, so the science works. It can create a basic sound inside someone's head. But can it be controlled? Can you go from just a simple buzz or a click to sending an actual understandable message? Because that's the real game changer.
Well, the early experiments showed that by changing the properties of the radio frequency pulse, you could actually change the sound that was heard. You could make it a click, or a buzz, or a knock. This was huge because it proved the effect was tunable. The output could be controlled by changing the input.
And here it is. This is the breakthrough. The report states that one experiment successfully transmitted the words 1 through 10 using speech-modulated microwave energy. This was the giant leap, from just making weird noises to proving that actual, coherent words could be formed inside someone's head. And get this, while the person was hearing these numbers, a microphone placed right next to their head detected absolute silence. Nothing. This just confirms it. The sound isn't happening in the room. It's happening entirely inside the target's mind. It is a truly private channel of communication. So let's recap. We have a scientifically proven way to transmit words directly into someone's head, silently. The next logical question is, how real is this? Is this just a lab curiosity, or is it a practical, usable technology?
Well, the report doesn't talk about this like it's some far-off fantasy. It assesses it as a totally viable technology. It says the generator could be adapted from radar systems we already have, aiming devices were available, and that even man-portable, person-sized systems were considered possible.
And the range? We're not talking about a few feet across a lab bench. The report estimates an effective range of hundreds of meters with the technology they had back then.
This is what takes it from a scientific oddity to a potential long-distance tool for the battlefield.
So if the tech is viable, we really have to ask why. Why was it being studied? Because silent communication is one thing, but the report goes way further, exploring its use as a weapon for psychological operations.
The report outlines this whole spectrum of possibilities. On one end, you've got tactical communication. Imagine sending a secret message to a single hostage surrounded by captors. But on the other end of that spectrum is psychological warfare, creating distracting noises or transmitting messages designed to completely confuse and terrify an enemy. The exact same tool can be used to save a life or to break a mind.
And the report doesn't mince words about the potential impact. Quoting it directly again, it says it could be psychologically devastating for someone to suddenly start hearing voices inside their own head. The real weapon isn't just the message, it's the terrifying, reality-bending experience of receiving it.
This declassified report really pulls back the curtain on a technology that completely blurs the line between communication, perception, and psychological warfare. It forces us to ask a really profound question. In a world where a message itself can be a weapon, delivered silently and invisibly into the human mind, where do we and where should we draw the line?